The year was 2234, and Earth had settled into a long stretch of peace, its people scattered across cities that shimmered with towering spires of steel and glass. Above, the sky was often a canvas of technological wonders, hovering transports, shimmering satellites, and the occasional streak of a ship breaking through the atmosphere on its way to a distant colony. Humanity had flourished, though it had long lost its ambitions to reach beyond its star system. The mysteries of the universe had quieted, and with them, the urgency of exploration had waned. Space, once the final frontier, had become an afterthought, a domain where only scientists, miners, and traders still wandered. That is, until the message came. It arrived without warning, bypassing the secure communication networks used by Earth's advanced technology. Instead, it came through a long-forgotten frequency, one that hadn't been used in centuries. The signal crackled to life inside the global communications hub, a monolithic structure floating in the upper atmosphere, orbiting the Earth like a sentinel. Within the cold, sterile halls of the station, the signal's sudden presence triggered alarms. Inside the communications control room, Sergeant Lynn Carter, a middle-aged officer who had been running routine checks on Earth's satellite grids, almost spilled her cup of coffee when the old system buzzed and hummed, emitting an eerie, otherworldly sound. She set the cup down, her hands instinctively moving over the holographic control panel to isolate the signal. The frequency one she hadn't seen in years of service wasn't on any current registry. "This can't be right," she muttered under her breath. The garbled transmission sent shivers down her spine. There was something haunting about it, something that felt ancient and unearthly, as if it were a voice from the past. After running it through a series of decryption algorithms, the words began to clear. A voice emerged, a woman's voice, low, resonant, and heavy with emotion. The hairs on the back of Lynn's neck stood on end. It was a language she didn't recognize, but the tone desperate, pleading, needed no translation. And then, in the midst of static and distortion, she heard a name, one that sent a chill through her body. ... Zira. By the time the signal was decoded and routed to Earth's central command, chaos had erupted. The message from a long-forgotten civilization had stirred the halls of power and intellect. Within hours, global leaders, top scientists, and military officials gathered in the United Nations Advanced Response Center in New York City, a subterranean complex deep beneath the Earth, protected from potential alien threats and natural disasters alike. In the center of the war room stood President Eleanor Davis, a tall, imposing woman whose silver-streaked hair framed her sharp, analytical features. Though she had led humanity through interplanetary conflicts and brokered peace with colonies across Mars and Europa, nothing had prepared her for what she was about to hear. "Is it confirmed?" she asked, her voice calm but tense as she stared at the holographic projection in front of her. The floating image showed the ancient frequency, pulsing with a steady rhythm. "Yes, Madam President," replied Dr. Naomi Sato, head of Earth's leading genetic research institute. Sato's normally composed demeanor was tinged with uncertainty, her eyes wide as she regarded the data streaming across her screen. "The transmission matches the frequencies once used by the Syrians." There was a long pause as the room seemed to inhale in unison. The Syrians, a race humanity had encountered centuries ago. An all-female, highly advanced civilization that had visited Earth briefly before vanishing into the cosmos as mysteriously as they had appeared. Their advanced technology, their graceful yet intimidating presence, and their inexplicable longevity had captivated Earth's imagination, but their disappearance had left more questions than answers. No one had heard from them since. Until now. "Play the message," President Davis ordered. The room darkened as the transmission began. The holographic projectors flickered, and then, standing before them in ghostly light, was the image of a tall, regal woman, her features both alien and hauntingly familiar. Her skin was pale, her eyes a deep violet, and her long, silver hair cascaded over intricate robes of a material that shimmered like liquid metal. She was unmistakably Syrian. "I am Queen Zira, sovereign of the planet Sira," the woman's voice echoed, her tone laden with sorrow. "People of Earth, I call upon you not as rulers, but as survivors. Our males, they are gone, lost to us centuries ago. We have tried, our scientists, our scholars, our mystics all have failed to reverse this fate. We cannot reproduce, and now our population dwindles. We face extinction." Her voice broke, just slightly, and the room felt the weight of that desperation. We seek the aid of your males, your men, to help us continue our species, Queen Zira continued. This is not merely a call for survival, but for hope. We offer knowledge, we offer peace, we offer alliance, but we cannot survive alone. The once great civilization of Zira stands on the brink of collapse. The message ended abruptly, her image lingering for a few more moments before dissolving into static. Silence filled the room. President Davis was the first to speak. Is it genuine? Dr. Sato nodded, her voice quiet. There's no doubt. The genetic markers embedded in the transmission match those of the Syrians. It's authentic. The room buzzed with murmurs, the weight of the situation sinking in. An entire alien race, one with incredible technological prowess, was asking for humanity's help. Not just any help, but aid in the form of human men, to prevent their extinction. For the next several hours, Earth's greatest minds gathered to discuss the implications of Queen Zira's message. The situation was more than a humanitarian plea. It was a call that challenged the very fabric of ethics, science, and diplomacy. In a secure meeting room deep within the response center, President Davis convened with her top advisors. Dr. Sato, the president said, turning to the geneticist, what do we know about the Syrians' biology? Could human men even reproduce with them? Sato hesitated. The Syrians share some remarkable similarities with us, though their biology is more advanced. We once theorized that their longevity and health were due to a deep mastery of genetics, but reproduction across species, it's possible, with the right modifications, however. It would require deep scientific intervention. Their request, though simple on the surface, could be incredibly complex. And what of the risks? Asked General Ethan Cole, a gruff military leader known for his cautious approach to anything extraterrestrial. We've had no contact with the Syrians for centuries. How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? The room fell silent again. It was a valid concern. Sato folded her hands, her expression thoughtful. From what we know, the Syrians valued knowledge and peace. But you're right, there's much we don't know about what happened to them after they lost their males. They mentioned a catastrophe, but the details are vague. If we go, we need to be prepared for the unknown. President Davis leaned back in her chair, her fingers tapping against the table. We can't ignore this. But we also can't rush in blindly. If there's even a chance that this is legitimate, it could change everything, not just for them, but for us. The decision weighed heavily on her shoulders. Earth had the resources to send a mission, but the moral and political implications were staggering. Could humanity offer the help the Syrians needed without losing something vital in return? By the end of the day, a decision had been made. A mission would be sent to Zira. It was to be a scientific and diplomatic endeavor, an exploration of both their biological crisis and the potential for a new alliance. A select group of men, all volunteers, would travel alongside the scientists to understand the Syrians' reproduction challenges. The mission was unprecedented, and the stakes were impossibly high. Commander Alex Martinez, a seasoned interstellar tactician, was appointed to lead the mission. He was a man of practicality, chosen for his ability to adapt to new situations and command in the face of uncertainty. His military background and calm under pressure made him the ideal candidate. On the day the team was assembled, the mood was tense. Martinez stood before his crew, his voice steady as he addressed them. You've all been briefed on the situation. This is unlike anything we've faced before. We're not just going to another planet, we're going to help a civilization survive. There are risks, and we don't know what we'll find when we get there, but we'll be prepared for anything. Beside him, Dr. Naomi Sato studied the men carefully. They weren't just soldiers or scientists anymore, they were potential fathers to an alien race. It was an idea too vast to fully comprehend, yet it was their reality. As the mission prepared to depart, President Davis stood before the media, addressing the world. The response from Earth's population had been mixed. Some saw this mission as a chance to forge a new bond with an alien race, while others questioned the morality of sending men to an unknown fate. We embark on this mission not only to answer a call for help, Davis said, her voice strong, but to seek understanding. We cannot turn away from those in need, no matter how distant. This is a moment that will define our place in the universe, for better or for worse. The world watched as the ship carrying Earth's chosen few lifted off into the sky, bound for Zira, the planet of lost legends and forgotten echoes. And so humanity ventured into the unknown once more, with the hopes of a dying civilization resting on their shoulders. The stars stretched into infinity as the Elysium, Earth's most advanced interstellar spacecraft, glided through the vastness of space. The ship was an embodiment of Earth's progress, sleek and powerful, designed for long voyages between the stars. Its exterior shimmered like polished silver as it cut through the fabric of space toward its destination, the distant planet of Sira. Inside, Commander Alex Martinez stood at the viewing bay, his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed on the endless night outside. The glow from distant galaxies danced across his face, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Despite his calm exterior, Martinez could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on him. This was no ordinary assignment. It wasn't a tactical strike, nor a rescue operation. This was something far more complex, something deeper. His mind wandered back to the message from Queen Zira. Her voice had carried such power, but beneath it, a vulnerability that had unsettled him. A people on the brink of extinction, calling out for help after centuries of silence. It was hard to comprehend. Even harder to grasp the fact that they were depending on him and the men aboard this ship to ensure their survival. The door behind him slid open with a soft hiss, and Dr. Naomi Sato entered the observation deck. Martinez didn't need to turn around to know it was her. He could sense her presence sharp, focused, and quietly intense. She moved with the precision of someone accustomed to high-stakes situations, yet there was something almost otherworldly about her calm demeanor. Her sharp black hair was tied back in a neat ponytail, and her eyes, always scanning, held a kind of restrained curiosity. "Commander," she said, her voice breaking the silence. He nodded but kept his eyes on the stars. "We're almost there." "Indeed. We'll be entering Sira's orbit in a few hours," Dr. Sato replied, moving to stand beside him. Her gaze followed his out the viewing bay. "Are you ready for this?" Martinez exhaled slowly. "Ready? I'm not sure anyone could be ready for what's waiting for us down there. But prepared?" "Yes, I'm prepared." Dr. Sato remained silent for a moment before speaking again. Their biology, their history, it's all so mysterious. A society that advanced, yet they couldn't solve the reproduction crisis. Something doesn't add up. "I've been thinking the same," Martinez admitted. A civilization that could travel the stars, manipulate genetics, and extend life, yet they couldn't find a way to prevent their own extinction. Sato nodded, her brow furrowing slightly. "And then there's the matter of the males. Vanishing like that. It doesn't make sense. Was it disease, war, something else?" Martinez turned to face her, his expression hardening. "Whatever it was, we're going to find out. We're not just here to help them reproduce. We need to understand what happened, what caused their downfall. If there's a threat out there, something that could come for us next, we need to know." A silence fell between them as they both considered the magnitude of what lay ahead. There were so many unknowns, and in space unknowns were dangerous. As the Elysium neared Sira, the crew assembled in the control room. The atmosphere was tense, filled with anticipation. The planet soon appeared on the ship's screens, a vast orb of swirling blue and green, its surface shimmering with oceans and forests. From a distance, it looked almost peaceful, a place of natural beauty, untouched by the ravages of time. But as they drew closer, it became clear that something was wrong. Sira, once described in ancient records as a jewel of the cosmos, now looked faded. Its atmosphere had a dull haze, and the once great cities that had spanned across continents were barely visible beneath a web of decay. The ship's navigator, Lieutenant Julia Price, spoke up. "We're entering orbit now, Commander. There's an automated docking signal coming from their main city. Coordinates are locked." Martinez gave a sharp nod. "Take us in." As the ship descended through Sira's atmosphere, the alien world revealed itself in all its melancholic glory. Massive structures, towers that had once stretched toward the heavens, now stood half-collapsed, overgrown with strange, bioluminescent flora. Roads once bustling with life were silent, their surfaces cracked and worn with age. There were no signs of activity, no vehicles, no movement, just the slow, haunting decay of a civilization long past its prime. The Elysium glided smoothly toward an ancient landing platform, its landing gear making contact with a muted thud. Outside the ship, a desolate cityscape stretched in every direction, the remnants of a once thriving metropolis now crumbling under the weight of time. The skies above were a deep shade of violet, casting a strange hue over the landscape. The crew prepared to disembark, tension palpable in the air. Martinez, ever the soldier, donned his tactical gear and made sure his sidearm was secured. This wasn't a combat mission, but he wasn't taking any chances. Dr. Sato, along with the other scientists and engineers, gathered their equipment ready to begin their investigation the moment they stepped foot on Syrian soil. Martinez looked to his team of volunteers, 5 men chosen for their genetic compatibility with the Syrians, as well as their mental and physical resilience. Michael Lawson, a young geneticist who had volunteered for the mission, was among them, his expression a mixture of awe and apprehension. Next to him stood Ethan Greaves, a military officer who, like Martinez, seemed to be prepared for anything but remain silent, ever observant. As the airlock hissed open, a wave of alien air greeted them, cool, slightly sweet, and heavy with moisture. The team stepped out onto the ancient platform, their boots echoing softly in the silence. They were greeted not by crowds or diplomats, but by a single figure. She was tall, her posture regal despite the weariness etched into her features. Her silver hair flowed around her, and her robes, though worn, still carried the air of nobility. This was Queen Zira. She stood alone, a solemn figure against the backdrop of her dying world. "Welcome," she said, her voice both commanding and sorrowful. "You have come to Zira in our darkest hour." Martinez stepped forward, inclining his head slightly in respect. "Queen Zira, I'm Commander Alex Martinez. We come on behalf of Earth." Zira's violet eyes, ancient and filled with wisdom and pain, scanned the group before settling on Martinez. "Thank you for answering our call. You are our only hope now." Her gaze flicked to the 5 men behind Martinez, lingering on them as though assessing their worth. Then she turned, her movements graceful but heavy with fatigue, and motioned for them to follow. The journey through the ruined city was both awe-inspiring and heartbreaking. They traveled on foot through wide boulevards that had once been filled with life, but were now eerily silent. Towering structures, some still standing, others crumbled into ruins, loomed over them like forgotten giants. Glowing plants clung to every surface, casting a faint light that bathed the streets in an ethereal glow. "There was a time," Zira said softly as they walked, "when these streets were alive with the laughter of my people. Our cities reached into the sky, and our technology knew no limits. We thought we were invincible." She paused, her voice catching slightly. "But we were wrong." "What happened?" Dr. Sato asked, her curiosity piqued. "How did it all fall apart?" Zira's expression darkened. "It began with the males. One day they were here, and the next. They were gone. Vanished without a trace. We searched, we experimented, we tried everything to reverse what had happened, but it was as though they had been wiped from existence." Her words sent a chill through the group. A race so advanced that they could manipulate genetics and extend life, yet their males had simply disappeared. It made no sense. "We had no answers," Zira continued, her voice soft but filled with bitterness, "and without our males we could not reproduce. Our scientists worked tirelessly, but every effort failed. Our population dwindled, and now we are but a fraction of what we once were." Martinez exchanged a glance with Dr. Sato. The mystery of the Syrians deepened with every word Zira spoke. It was clear that whatever had happened here was not a simple biological accident. There were greater forces at play, forces that had yet to reveal themselves. As they neared the heart of the city, Zira led them to a massive structure, one that had survived the ravages of time. Its exterior was smooth and gleaming, untouched by the decay that had consumed the rest of the city. This was the central nexus, the seat of Syrian power and knowledge. Inside, they were met by several Syrian women scientists, engineers, and advisors to Queen Zira. Among them was Kara, a tall woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. She regarded the Earth delegation with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "Commander," Zira said, gesturing to Kara, "this is Kara, head of our scientific efforts to save our people. She will assist your team in understanding our biology and the challenges we face." Kara stepped forward, her eyes locking with Dr. Sato's. There was a silent understanding between them. Both women were driven by a desire to uncover the truth, to push the boundaries of science in order to save a civilization. "We have much to discuss," Kara said, her voice calm but firm. "Our situation is dire, and time is not on our side." As they moved deeper into the nexus, Martinez felt a growing sense of unease. There was something about this place, something hidden beneath the surface. The Syrians were not telling them everything. The disappearance of the males, the collapse of their society, it all felt like pieces of a larger puzzle, one that hadn't yet been fully revealed. And as they settled into their new roles on Syrah, one thing became clear to Martinez and his team: they were walking into a mystery far more dangerous and complex than they had anticipated. The atmosphere inside the central nexus was thick with unspoken tension, the weight of centuries of desperation pressing in on the Earth delegation as they settled into their new quarters. The Syrians had provided accommodations for the human visitors in what seemed to have once been a guest wing for foreign dignitaries. The walls, once grand with intricate carvings and symbols from an age of Syrian prosperity, now appeared faded and cracked, their brilliance dimmed by time and neglect. Commander Alex Martinez paced the length of his quarters, the heavy silence of the alien world gnawing at him. The walls seemed to pulse with a quiet sadness, as though the very architecture mourned the collapse of a once great civilization. He stopped in front of a large floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the sprawling remains of the Syrian capital. From this vantage point, the decay of the city was more apparent than ever. Vast towers leaned at precarious angles, their once pristine surfaces marred by vines of bioluminescent flora that crept across their faces like veins on pale skin. This world is dying, Martinez thought grimly. And it's not just their lack of males. There's something more, something they're not telling us. Behind him, the door slid open with a gentle hiss, and Dr. Naomi Sato entered, her tablet glowing faintly in the dim light. She was deep in thought, her fingers tapping quickly across the screen as she processed the data from their initial biological assessments of the Syrian women. Martinez turned to her, his brow furrowed. "What have you found?" Naomi looked up, meeting his gaze. "It's strange. Their genetics are advanced far more than I anticipated. Their lifespans have been extended well beyond what we thought possible, and they've eradicated most diseases centuries ago. But the key issue, their inability to reproduce, doesn't seem to be biological in nature." Martinez raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. "Then what is it?" Sato sighed, her frustration evident. "I don't know yet. Everything points to them having the capability to reproduce if males were present. There's no genetic defect, no biological barrier. But something is blocking it, something we don't yet understand." Martinez frowned, the uneasy feeling in his gut deepening. "And what about the disappearance of their males? Did they just vanish, or was there some kind of disease?" Naomi shook her head. "That's the other mystery. Their records are incomplete, fragmented. Some suggest a biological disaster, while others hint at external interference. But whatever it was sudden, and it left no traces." The two fell into a contemplative silence. It was clear they were missing a crucial piece of the puzzle, one that the Syrians themselves either didn't know or weren't willing to share. "I'll keep digging," Naomi said after a moment. "There has to be something we're overlooking." Martinez nodded, but his mind was already drifting to the other pressing issue at hand. His men were expected to help these women reproduce. It wasn't something he'd ever thought he'd have to grapple with as a soldier, but here they were, facing a challenge that was both biological and deeply personal. Down in the research labs of the Nexus, Kara, the head of Syrian scientific efforts, worked closely with Naomi and her team. The labs were a stark contrast to the decaying city outside here. The technology was pristine, humming with a soft, almost melodic hum. Holographic displays floated in midair, showcasing intricate strands of DNA, advanced data models, and biochemical analyses. Kara's blue eyes flicked across the holograms, her expression calm but focused. She was a woman of precision, always in control, yet there was a subtle tension in her movements, as though the weight of her people's survival pressed on her shoulders alone. She spoke little, but her every word carried the gravity of her mission. Dr. Sato, Kara said, breaking the silence as they both studied the DNA strands projected before them. "Your findings are promising, but there is something you must understand. Our people. We were once proud, our science was unparalleled, our technology a marvel across the galaxies. And yet, none of that matters anymore. We are dying. The hope you bring is fragile, and my people are wary." Naomi glanced at Kara, sensing the underlying emotions that her stoic expression hid. "I understand. But if we work together, I believe we can find a solution. I've already started to run simulations on possible genetic integrations between human males and Syrian females." Kara's lips pressed into a thin line, and she gave a slow nod. "There are some among us who doubt that the Earthmen will succeed where we have failed, and there are those who believe that any union with your people would taint our legacy." Naomi narrowed her eyes. Are you talking about Mira? Kara hesitated, a shadow passing over her face. Mira is complicated. She believes we should have found our own solution by now, without outside help. She's a traditionalist, one who believes in the purity of our race. Naomi sighed. And she leads a faction of women who think bringing Earthmen into the equation will do more harm than good. Kara nodded. Exactly. Queen Zira's decision to ask for your aid was not a unanimous one. The tension between the different factions on Zira was becoming clearer with every conversation. This wasn't just a scientific problem, they were walking through a political minefield, and one wrong step could ignite the simmering unrest among the Syrians. Later that evening, as the Earth team gathered for a debrief in one of the Nexus's sterile conference rooms, the mood was heavy. Michael Lawson, the young geneticist among the volunteers, sat quietly, his fingers tracing the rim of a cup of water. He had always been the more reserved member of the group, but here, on Zira, his quiet nature had become even more pronounced. His thoughts were dominated by the enormity of the mission and the personal implications it carried. So Ethan Greaves, the hardened military officer, said, breaking the silence, "We're supposed to help them reproduce. But what happens if we can't?" It was a blunt question, but one everyone had been avoiding. The room fell silent again, the weight of Greaves's words sinking in. Martinez leaned forward, his expression serious. "That's not an option. Failure means the extinction of an entire species. We didn't come all this way to let that happen." Michael looked up, his voice quiet but steady. "It's not just about reproduction though, is it? We're being asked to create a new generation, one that bridges two worlds. That's not something you can approach like a simple genetic experiment. There's more at stake here." Naomi nodded in agreement. Michael's right. This isn't just about biology. There's a cultural and emotional element to this that we can't ignore. These women have lost everything. Imagine the trauma they've endured. And now we're asking them to bond with us, with human men, to continue their species. It's not just a scientific challenge, it's a human one. The room fell silent once more, the magnitude of what they were facing settling in. They weren't just scientists and soldiers anymore. They were part of something far more profound, a cultural exchange, a blending of two worlds, with the future of an entire race hanging in the balance. As the days passed, the Earth team and the Syrians began to engage more deeply with one another. Despite the underlying tension, there were moments of connection, of understanding. The Earthmen were invited to partake in Syrian customs, their ancient rituals of bonding and trust building. These rituals were designed to create a deeper sense of connection between individuals, something that had been at the core of Syrian society before their males had disappeared. One such ritual was the Conclave of the Ancients, a gathering where the Syrians shared their history through song and dance, their bodies moving in fluid, graceful patterns that told stories of their triumphs, their sorrows, and their longing for a future that seemed increasingly out of reach. During one of these gatherings, Martinez found himself sitting beside Queen Zira, her presence as commanding as ever despite the softness in her voice. "Do you believe we can truly save your people?" Martinez asked, his gaze focused on the women performing in the center of the conclave. Zira didn't respond immediately. Instead, she watched the dancers with a distant expression, her violet eyes reflecting the glowing lights of the ritual. "I don't know," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I hope. That is all we have left." Martinez turned to her, studying her face. Despite her regal bearing, there was a fragility there, a deep sadness that seemed to seep into every word she spoke. He wondered how many sleepless nights she had endured, worrying about the future of her people. He wondered if she carried the burden of feeling as though she had failed them. As the dancers moved in a circle, their hands intertwined, their voices rising in a haunting melody, Martinez felt a strange sense of awe. This was a dying civilization, but there was still beauty here, still life. And it was up to him, up to all of them, to ensure that this beauty didn't fade into nothingness. But as the bonds between the Earth team and the Syrians deepened, so did the fractures within Syrian society. Mira, the defiant leader of the faction opposed to Earth's intervention, grew bolder in her dissent. Rumors began to circulate of secret meetings, of plans to resist Queen Zira's decision and cut ties with the humans altogether. Tensions escalated one evening during a council meeting when Mira confronted Queen Zira openly. "We have lived for centuries without men." Mira's voice rang out in the council chamber, her eyes blazing with righteous anger. "Why should we compromise our very essence now? to dilute our legacy with outsiders. Zira's expression was calm but firm. Without their help, we will cease to exist, Mira. What good is our legacy if there is no one left to carry it forward? Mira scoffed, her defiance palpable. You have lost faith in our people, Zira. You have forgotten who we are. I will not stand by while you lead us to ruin. The council chamber was silent, the tension between the two women crackling like electricity in the air. Martinez watched from the sidelines, his instincts telling him that this was more than just a political disagreement. This was the spark that could ignite something far more dangerous. As the mission continued, the mysteries surrounding Zira deepened. Dr. Sato's team discovered more anomalies in the Syrian genetic code fragments of data that suggested an external force had tampered with their DNA, possibly contributing to the disappearance of their males. But who or what was responsible? Martinez began to suspect that the catastrophe that had befallen Zira was no accident. There were whispers of an ancient enemy, a shadowy force that had once coveted the Syrians' advanced technology and had sought to destroy them when they refused to yield. And as the Earth team delved deeper into these secrets, it became clear that they were not just fighting to save a dying race, they were also uncovering the truth behind a long-forgotten war, one that could have devastating consequences for both Zira and Earth. The weight of ancient mysteries hung heavy in the air as the days on Zira stretched into weeks. Earth's team was no longer just a group of volunteers sent to help a dying race. They had become detectives in an unfolding enigma, drawn deeper into the labyrinth of the Syrian world. The sense of something being withheld, of an underlying danger lurking beneath the surface, had gnawed at Commander Alex Martinez since they arrived. Every conversation, every glance from the Syrian women hinted at a deeper truth they were not being told. It was time to find out what that was. Inside the central nexus, the research facilities continued to hum with activity. The integration of Earth technology and Syrian science had pushed the boundaries of both species' knowledge, yet the most pressing questions remained unanswered. Why had the Syrian males disappeared, and what had caused the civilization's slow spiral into extinction? Dr. Naomi Sato had made substantial progress in decoding the genetic anomalies present in the Syrian women, but every answer only led to more questions. One morning, Martinez received a message from Queen Zira, delivered via a small holographic projection in his quarters. The image of Zira flickered to life, her regal face pale and weary, but her tone was firm. "Commander Martinez," she began, "it is time. There is something you must see, something that may hold the answers we all seek. Meet me at the entrance of the Grand Archive, deep beneath the Nexus." Her message ended abruptly, leaving Martinez with more questions than answers. The Grand Archive. He had heard only whispers of the place, an ancient library, a repository of all the knowledge the Syrians had accumulated over millennia. But it was sealed, hidden beneath layers of time and mystery, inaccessible to most of the Syrian population. Zira had never mentioned it directly before, but now it seemed this archive held the key to the Syrians' past, and perhaps to their future. Martinez quickly gathered his team: Dr. Naomi Sato, Michael Lawson, the geneticist, and Ethan Greaves, his second in command. Each of them had their own reasons for needing to see this hidden part of the Syrian world. They moved with quiet determination through the crumbling halls of the Nexus, the silence of the city outside pressing in on them like a weight they could not shake. The entrance to the Grand Archive was hidden behind an ancient, weathered stone gate deep beneath the central nexus. A maze of tunnels had led them there, twisting passages lined with alien glyphs and bioluminescent vines that pulsed softly in the darkness. It was as though they were descending into the forgotten heart of Zira, a place untouched by time or the decay that had consumed the rest of the planet. Queen Zira awaited them at the gate, flanked by Kara, the head scientist, and two other Syrian women who wore the ceremonial robes of guardians of the archive. Zira's face was grave, her violet eyes meeting Martinez's with a somber intensity. "This is the repository of all our knowledge," Zira said, her voice echoing softly through the cavernous space. "It has been sealed for centuries, untouched since the Great Catastrophe. Inside are the records of our golden age and the tragedy that followed." Naomi stepped forward, her scientific curiosity piqued. "Why has it remained sealed for so long? Surely the answers we seek about the disappearance of your males, about the collapse of your society, could have been found here." Zira's expression darkened. "There are those who believe that the knowledge contained within the archive is cursed, that it is tied to the very event that doomed our people. My ancestors locked it away, fearing that what was inside would bring only more suffering." Ethan scoffed softly, his arms crossed over his chest. And now you think it's safe to open it? Zira turned to him, her gaze sharp. I think we have no choice. Time is running out for all of us. Kara stepped forward, her fingers dancing across the glyphs carved into the gate. There is a code embedded in the stone, passed down through generations. It is the only way to unlock the archive. The others watched as Kara worked in silence, her hands moving with careful precision. The glyphs glowed faintly beneath her touch, and then, with a low rumble, the massive stone doors began to slide open, revealing a dark, yawning chamber beyond. Martinez felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever lay within had been hidden for a reason. The interior of the Grand Archive was vast, a sprawling complex of towering shelves, holographic displays, and ancient scrolls that stretched endlessly into the shadows. The air was thick with the weight of history, a palpable sense of age that seemed to press down on them as they stepped inside. Naomi was the first to speak, her voice hushed with awe. This is incredible. It's like a treasure trove of forgotten knowledge. Zira nodded solemnly. Here lies the sum of all Syrian history, science, and philosophy. But more importantly, it contains the records of the last days of our golden age before the catastrophe struck. Martinez felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up as they ventured deeper into the archive. There was an eerie stillness to the place, as though it had been waiting for this moment, waiting for someone to unlock the secrets it held. Kara led them to a central chamber, where a large circular table glowed softly with ancient technology. As she activated the table, holographic images flickered to life, displaying fragments of historical records maps, diagrams, and texts in the alien language of the Syrians. Naomi leaned forward, her eyes scanning the data. These are records from before the males disappeared. Kara nodded. This is the last complete archive we have. It contains the research and findings of our scientists during the final days before the catastrophe. Martinez watched as the holograms shifted, showing images of the Syrian males tall, strong, and graceful, much like the women, but with subtle differences. There were images of their cities at the height of their power, of grand ceremonies and technological marvels. And then, the images darkened. The catastrophe had come swiftly. The records showed confusion, panic. The males began to disappear, first a few, then hundreds, and finally all of them gone without a trace. The holograms depicted frantic attempts by the Syrian scientists to understand what was happening, but the data was fragmented, incomplete. Naomi's brow furrowed as she studied the records. It's almost as if something erased them. But there's no biological explanation for this. No disease, no virus. Kara's voice was soft but filled with bitterness, because it wasn't a natural disaster. The others turned to her, their expressions grim. What do you mean? Martinez asked, his voice low. Kara hesitated for a moment before speaking. There was a war long before the catastrophe, long before our golden age. Our ancestors fought against an enemy so powerful, so advanced, that they were barely able to survive. This enemy sought to control us, to take our technology and our knowledge for themselves. Zira stepped forward, her face pale. And when they failed to conquer us through force, they turned to more insidious means. They created a weapon, something that would target only our males, something that would ensure the slow extinction of our species. Martinez felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Are you saying this was deliberate? An attack? Kara nodded, her expression hard. Yes, we believe that our males were not just killed, they were erased. Their very existence was wiped from our world, leaving no trace behind, and without them we were left to die. Naomi's face paled as she processed the information. But who? Who would do something like that? Zira's voice was filled with quiet fury. We do not know. The records of our enemies have been lost to time. But we do know that they were powerful, far more powerful than we could have imagined. Ethan stepped forward, his jaw clenched. And you think they could still be out there? Kara's eyes darkened. We fear that they may be watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The revelation hung in the air like a storm cloud, thick with the weight of danger. Martinez felt a growing sense of dread as he realized the implications of what they had uncovered. This wasn't just about helping the Syrians reproduce. This was about stopping an ancient enemy from finishing what they had started. We need to alert Earth, Martinez said, his voice firm. "If this enemy is still out there, we need to be prepared." Zira shook her head. "We cannot risk it. If they know that we have uncovered their secret, they may strike sooner than we anticipate." Martinez clenched his fists. "So what do you suggest we do? Sit here and wait for them to come?" Kara stepped forward, her gaze steady. "We need to use what we've learned here to protect ourselves. Our technology, combined with yours, could give us the advantage we need. But we must act quickly. Time is not on our side." Naomi nodded in agreement. "If we can find a way to reverse the effects of the weapon they used on your males, we may be able to bring back your ability to reproduce. That would be the first step." Zira's expression softened slightly, but the tension in her shoulders remained. "I have placed my trust in you, Commander. Do not let my people down." Martinez nodded, his resolve hardening. "We won't. But we need to be prepared for the possibility that this enemy is still out there." In the days that followed, the Earth team worked tirelessly alongside the Syrians to develop a strategy for their survival. Kara and Naomi focused on reversing the genetic effects of the weapon, while Martinez and Ethan coordinated with Syrian military leaders to bolster their defenses. The ancient technologies buried within the Grand Archive were brought to light, and the Syrians' once dormant war machines were reactivated, ready to defend their dying world. But as the preparations continued, Mira's opposition grew bolder. Her faction, distrustful of Earth's involvement and determined to preserve the purity of Syrian culture, began to stir unrest within the city. Rumors of rebellion spread, and there were whispers that Mira was planning something drastic. Martinez kept a close watch on her movements, knowing that any internal conflict could jeopardize their chances of survival. The stakes had never been higher. One evening, as Martinez stood on the balcony of the Nexus, looking out over the crumbling city, Queen Zira joined him. The violet sky above them was darkening, the twin moons of Zira casting long shadows across the landscape. "You've uncovered the truth," Zira said quietly, her voice heavy with emotion. "The enemy that destroyed our people may still be out there, waiting to finish what they started." Martinez glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "But we're not going to let that happen. We'll fight. We'll find a way to save your people." Zira turned to face him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "I have trusted you, Commander, but I must ask you, if we fail, if the enemy comes again, will you protect my people? Will Earth stand with us?" Martinez didn't hesitate. "Yes, we'll stand with you." Zira's gaze softened, and for the first time since their arrival, a flicker of hope appeared in her eyes. But there was still a long road ahead, one fraught with danger, betrayal, and the looming threat of an ancient enemy. And as the first signs of rebellion stirred within the city, Martinez knew that their greatest challenge was yet to come. The city of Zira, once a towering monument to an advanced civilization, was now a battlefield. As the violet sky deepened, an unsettling quiet had settled over the streets, broken only by the hum of ancient machinery being brought back to life. The central nexus, the heart of Syrian society, was now a fortress brimming with both renewed hope and looming conflict. Commander Alex Martinez stood at the edge of the nexus's balcony, watching as the bioluminescent plants below cast eerie patterns across the ruins of the city. The revelation that an ancient enemy had wiped out the males of the Syrian race was a dagger that had cut deep into their collective psyche. It had shattered illusions, stirred old fears, and more troublingly, divided the people. The once forgotten history of Zira was now a living nightmare, and as much as the Syrians wanted to look forward to a future alongside the Earth team, their past was catching up to them faster than anyone could have anticipated. Martinez had always prided himself on his ability to maintain calm under pressure, but now, standing at the brink of a war that could once again ravage this already devastated planet, he felt the strain in every muscle. The Syrians were preparing for the worst, and Earth's team had done everything they could to help. But still, there were too many unknowns. The enemy, the shadowy force that had erased the Syrian males, was out there, somewhere watching. Beside him, Ethan Greaves shifted uneasily, his jaw tight, as he surveyed the preparations below. Earth and Syrian forces worked together to assemble the remnants of a long-dormant defense system, reactivating energy shields, deploying drones, and positioning weaponized platforms that had once been the pride of Syrian ingenuity. "You think they'll come?" Ethan asked, his voice low. Martinez didn't take his eyes off the horizon. "They've been watching us, maybe for centuries. Now that we've uncovered the truth in the Grand Archive, they'll see it as a threat. If we can reverse what they did, if we can bring back the males. He let the words hang in the air, but the implication was clear. They would come, and they would come to finish what they started. Ethan's fists clenched at his sides. We're ready for them. We have to be. Martinez nodded, though the doubt in his mind lingered. Let's hope so. In the Nexus's medical wing, Dr. Naomi Sato and Kara worked tirelessly, surrounded by holographic screens displaying intricate genetic models. They had made significant progress in decoding the genetic tampering that had erased the Syrian males, but the solution still eluded them. The biological weapon used by the ancient enemy was unlike anything they had ever encountered, a virus that acted on a molecular level to remove males from the Syrian gene pool entirely. Naomi frowned as she adjusted the data on the screen. We're close, she murmured, almost to herself. But there's something missing. The virus was too precise, too perfect. It was engineered to adapt, to evolve. If we're going to reverse it, we need to understand its final phase, what triggered the complete disappearance. Kara, standing beside her, remained silent for a moment before speaking. There is a place we haven't searched yet. A place I've avoided until now. Naomi looked at her, sensing the weight behind her words. Where? The cradle of memories, Kara replied. It's an ancient repository deep within the core of Syra, where our ancestors stored the most important knowledge records of the war, of the weapon used against us. But it's dangerous. The cradle hasn't been accessed in centuries, and the energy required to unlock it could destabilize the city. Naomi's eyes widened. And you're only telling me this now? Kara's gaze hardened. I didn't believe it was necessary, but now, we have no choice. Naomi nodded, her mind racing. If there's even a chance the cradle holds the key, we have to go. We're running out of time. That evening, Martinez gathered his team in the Nexus's central chamber. The tension in the air was palpable, every member of the Earth delegation aware that the next steps they took would either save Syra or doom it forever. Queen Zira stood at the head of the chamber, her regal presence as commanding as ever, though her face betrayed the strain of leadership in these desperate times. The cradle of memories, Martinez began, addressing the group. It's our last hope. Kara believes it holds the final pieces of the puzzle we need to reverse the weapon that erased the males from this world. Ethan crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. And it's dangerous. Kara stepped forward, her expression resolute. Very. The cradle is located deep beneath the planet's surface, in a region that's unstable. It hasn't been opened in centuries. If we miscalculate, we could trigger a seismic event that would destroy the city. Great, Ethan muttered. No pressure. Queen Zira's voice cut through the murmurs. We must proceed. If the cradle holds the key to reversing the effects of the weapon, it is a risk we must take. Syra cannot survive much longer without this knowledge. Martinez nodded. Then we'll go. Ethan, you and I will lead the ground team. Kara, Naomi, you'll handle the extraction of the data from the cradle. The decision was made. There was no turning back now. The journey to the cradle of memories took them deep beneath the planet's surface, through ancient tunnels carved long before Syra's golden age. The Earth team, accompanied by a small group of Syrian soldiers, moved carefully through the dimly lit passages, the air thick with the weight of untold history. The further they descended, the more the temperature rose, and the walls around them pulsed faintly with a strange organic energy that seemed to hum with life. Kara led the way, her face grim as she guided them through the labyrinth of tunnels. The cradle was built to protect our most sacred knowledge, she explained quietly. But it was sealed after the war, and no one has dared to access it since. It holds memories, echoes of our past. Be prepared for what you may see. Martinez exchanged a glance with Naomi, who nodded in understanding. Whatever they found in the cradle, it would change everything. At last they reached the chamber. The entrance to the cradle was a massive circular door, covered in glowing glyphs and symbols that seemed to shift and move beneath the surface. Kara approached it cautiously, her fingers tracing the patterns as she activated the ancient mechanisms that controlled the lock. The door rumbled open, revealing a vast chamber filled with columns of light, each one pulsing with holographic data. The air was thick with energy, a low hum vibrating through the floor beneath their feet. This was the heart of Syrian knowledge, the repository of all their secrets. Naomi's eyes widened as she stepped inside, her scientific curiosity momentarily overwhelming her sense of urgency. This is incredible. It's like a living database. Kara moved swiftly to one of the central columns, her fingers moving rapidly across the holographic interface. Here, the records of the war, of the weapon, everything we need. As the data began to unfold before them, Martinez and Ethan stood guard at the entrance, their senses on high alert. There was a strange, oppressive feeling in the air, as though they were being watched. Kara, Martinez called, his voice tense. "How long until you have what you need?" "Just a few minutes," she replied, her focus entirely on the data streaming before her. But they didn't have a few minutes. The ground beneath them rumbled suddenly, a deep, ominous tremor that sent dust and debris falling from the ceiling. Martinez's instincts kicked in immediately. "We need to move, now." Naomi turned to Kara, her voice urgent. "Is there any way to download the data faster?" Kara shook her head, her eyes wide with panic. "No, this is as fast as it goes. If we leave now, we lose everything." The rumbling grew louder, more violent, and Martinez's heart pounded in his chest. "We can't stay here much longer. This whole place is unstable." Just as it seemed they were about to abandon the mission, the final piece of data locked into place, the column flashing with a blinding light. Kara reached forward and grabbed the small device that held the information they needed, tucking it into her cloak. "We have it," she shouted over the noise. "Move," Martinez barked, leading the team back toward the tunnels. As they fled, the tremors grew more intense, the walls cracking and splitting around them. Dust filled the air, and the ancient structure groaned under the weight of centuries of neglect. Martinez pushed forward, his body moving on pure adrenaline as he guided the team through the collapsing tunnels. Behind them, the chamber of the cradle began to cave in, the columns of light flickering out one by one as the knowledge of Syrah's past was consumed by the earth. They barely made it out of the tunnels alive. As they emerged into the lower levels of the Nexus, covered in dust and breathing heavily, Martinez turned to Kara, his chest heaving. "Did we get it?" Kara nodded, holding up the device that now contained the key to Syrah's survival. "We have everything. The data on the weapon, the genetic code, it's all here." Naomi exhaled in relief, her hands shaking slightly. "Now we just have to use it." The final days on Syrah were a blur of frantic activity. Kara and Naomi worked around the clock to develop a genetic reversal based on the data they had recovered. The Earth team provided military support, preparing for the inevitable retaliation from the ancient enemy, whose shadow loomed over them like a sword waiting to fall. But amidst the chaos, something remarkable began to happen. The first successful genetic modification was made, and for the first time in centuries, the Syrian women had the ability to reproduce once again. It was a fragile hope, a delicate spark of life in a dying world, but it was enough. Martinez stood alongside Queen Zira as the first of the new generation, an infant girl, born from the union of a Syrian woman and one of the Earth volunteers, was presented to the people. The crowd, gathered in the ruins of the central square, watched in hushed reverence as the tiny child was held aloft, a symbol of the future they had fought so hard to preserve. "This is the dawn of a new era," Zira whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "Our people will live on." Martinez nodded, his gaze fixed on the child, "and will stand with you for as long as it takes." But even as the new generation began to take root, the threat of the ancient enemy remained. They had not struck yet, but Martinez knew they were out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to finish what they had started. For now, however, there was peace. And in that peace there was hope. As the twin moons of Syrah rose high above the city, casting their pale light across the ruins, Martinez allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The battle was not yet over, but they had won a crucial victory. Syrah's people had been given a chance one they had not had in centuries. And with Earth's help, they would ensure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. The Watchers. In the vast emptiness of space, far beyond the reach of Syrah's twin moons, a shadowy figure watched from the depths of an ancient ship. Its eyes, glowing faintly in the darkness, observed the events unfolding on the planet below with cold calculation. "They have found the cradle," the figure murmured, its voice a low, echoing whisper, and they have unlocked the key. A pause, and then a smile thin, cruel. It is time. The ship shifted, disappearing into the void, and the stars continued to burn.